I'm dead.
Nice.
Bulldog.
Continue.
Kill him.
What is up YouTube? It's Dr. Zor helping cure you from being a noob. Today's video is all about strategy tips. 30 strategy tips that I wish I knew before playing Valorant. Now, if you didn't come from Counter-Strike, there's a lot of terminology and a lot of strategies that may not make a lot of sense to you, and that's what this video is. We're going to break down all the different terms and strategies that you might hear while you're in game. If this video helps you out, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video. Let's go for 300 likes, and comment down below on what your favorite agent is. And I also stream on Twitch. All my socials are in the description. That's enough said. Let's get into the video. Alright, we got 30 tips coming at you in rapid succession, so make sure you keep up. Coming in first, we're going to go over some credit tips. A half buy or economy round is a round where your team doesn't spend a lot of money, and the goal is to have enough money next round for a full buy. Usually you want to spend down to about 2,000 so that next round you will be able to get those credits and you will be able to buy bigger weapons, bigger abilities, and full armor. Tip number 2 is the anti-eco round. This is a round where you know that you have really good equipment, but the enemy doesn't, and they're on a save or a light buy round. So they have less equipment, so you actually want to be a little bit more cautious and stick as a team so that you don't lose your weapons and you get to just dominate and take the round that you deserve, since you do have the better equipment. A full save. This is usually what you want to do if you lost the initial pistol round at the start of the half. What this means is you don't buy anything, your team is very poor, likely under 2,000 credits, and you want to just save everything so that next round you'll be able to buy up as much as you can. Now, if you save properly, you should have around 3,900 credits or more, and you want to do a full buy. This is when you buy the best weapons in the game, the Phantom or the Vandal, as well as the heavy armor and any abilities that you may not have yet. This is the strongest buy that you can have in the game, and you want to save up for it and full buy as often as you can. And last but not least, force buying. When you don't have enough money to get the best equipment, sometimes you do want to spend your money and get as much as you can. An example is when you're near the end of the game and the enemy is about to win. They have 11 rounds or 12 rounds, and you really need to turn something around. You might want to do a force buy where you get a Spectre in armor, where you get a Bulldog, a Spectre, maybe a shotgun, maybe even a Sheriff, something that gives you as much of a chance of winning that round, even though it's against the odds, but you want to do so you can turn the tide of the game. Alright, so we got all the credits out of the way. Now we can go over the strategies. Tip number 6 is called a stack. This is when you put more than the normal amount of players that you would normally on one bomb site. For example, on bind, you usually want 3 players A and 2 players B, but if the enemy rushes multiple times B and they're winning every time, the next round they probably will go B again, and you might want to stack 3 people, maybe even 4 people there to prepare for the attack that's likely to come. Tip number 7 is rotating. If a teammate calls for a rotation, this means that you guys are leaving the area that you're currently attacking or defending and moving to another area to support your team. The biggest example is when you're on defender side, you have 3 players A and 2 players B, and the B players call that they're pushing B hard. That's a sign that you should rotate from A to B to help them out. Tip number 8, if you're from Counter-Strike, this will be something that's common knowledge to you, but it's not for all the Valorant players that aren't from Counter-Strike. When players say CT spawn or T spawn, CT just stands for counter-terrorist in Counter-Strike, but on Valorant it's the defender side, and T is terrorist, aka the attacker side in Valorant. So if someone calls that someone is CT spawn, that means they're on the defender spawn, and if someone calls T spawn, that means someone is on the attacker spawn. Even though the terminology isn't correct in Valorant, I would actually advise that players actually stick to this, because saying CT or T is a lot easier than saying attacker spawn or defender spawn, and you'll be able to get your message across quicker and more efficiently when you're in those tight situations. Tip number 11, this is another big one that you need to know, and that is trade killing or refragging. This occurs when your team is going in and perhaps your teammate gets killed, but then you are in position to get the kill back, so at least it's a 1-to-1 trade versus them getting a free elimination. To do this, you really want to be close with your teammates when they call for the push, and you don't want to be far back and doing what I would like to call on tip number 10. Tip number 10, now this one I advise you guys to listen carefully. Baiting, when you do not push with your teammates and instead you are waiting for them to be killed to reveal the enemy positions. This is pretty greedy play, as you're playing for yourself rather than your team. You're letting someone go out, get information, get killed, and they don't get traded. So if someone calls you a baiter, it's likely that you're not going in with your team and you're just letting them die, and then with that information you go in for the kills and you may get them, but in return your teammates have been eliminated. Alright, tip number 11, and this goes right along with tip number 9 on trade killing, and that is double peeking. Sometimes when you have certain angles, for say A long right here, sometimes it might be a good idea to have two players swinging out, so you go swinging in and then some other player behind you might be swinging in together, and then you guys both challenge him and it becomes a 2 versus 1 and you have a higher chance of killing them. Going along with that is tip number 12 on wide peeking, and this is required if you want to do a double peek against an enemy. So let's say an enemy is over here guarding A long and they're waiting for you. They have their crosshair placement right here. What you can do is you can do a wide peek so that you throw them off guard and you kill them that way. So the player is going to only see you here, but you swung all the way there. They have to make an adjustment to get the elimination, and that's sometimes what you want to do if you know someone is holding an angle here. If you peek like this, you'll end up at their crosshair and you'll be dead, versus if you wide peek a little bit, taking that extra half a second to go a little bit further, that might be just enough to throw them off guard and get the kill. And again, get that kill on your own or do that double peek that we just talked about. Alright, going into the next tip that's going to be huge for helping you advance your play, and that's going to be the jiggle peek or shoulder peek. So let's say an enemy is on B site, and then what they are trying to do is they're just holding this angle over here. So if you just peek straight up like this, they probably have their crosshair on you and you'll be dead. But what you can do is you can do a jiggle peek or a shoulder peek. So what this means is you press AD in rapid succession, and then your shoulder is the only thing that peeks, and you can see there that we got a small angle right there that we can see the enemy, and then we back out right afterwards. And if we do this quick little shoulder peek effectively, you'll be able to see just enough like that to see the enemy and maybe even bait out an op shot, and then you can come in yourself with that as well and then peek again and shoot them after they shoot their shot, because if they miss their shot, you'll be able to peek back and then boom, they'll be dead. Alright, tip number 14, this is a big one, especially if you're playing defender side or you're defending a spike. So what you can do is called a crossfire. This is requiring, again, 2 teammates, but it allows you to guard one area at multiple different angles. Let's say you're in a 2 versus 1 situation and the enemy is over on the A site coming in against your close plant on the B site. So if they're going to come over here, what you can do is you can set up a crossfire. So you can have one person maybe in here at mid waiting for them with their crosshair, and then you can have another player on the other side with their crosshair also placed at this angle. And again, if the guy peeks out, he may be able to take one player out, but there's no way he'll be able to get this kill and then flick over here fast enough before you guys can take him out. And that's a crossfire, having 2 players at one angle watching it at different positions to ensure that you get the kill and you surprise the enemy with the 2 positions that you had. Tip number 15, we're going to switch gears into some more terminology. A dink or gush. If someone calls this out, this means that they got a headshot on an enemy but they didn't die. But if they got the headshot, it's likely that the enemy is really low health, so then you can know that it could be a safe option for you to go back and challenge that guy wherever he may be to get the kill on them with that advantage. Tip number 16, if your teammate calls lit, tagged, or hit, this is referring to the enemy and it's saying that the enemy team is low on health. If you say Viper is lit 95, it means that they have done 95 damage to Viper, and that's letting you know that they're low health, and that could be a good chance for you to find them and get the frag back. Tip number 17, and and this is probably an obvious one that you've heard before: drop me, or can I get a drop? You'll hear this if your teammate doesn't have enough money to buy a weapon and you do, and it's time for a buy round. So what you want to do is you want to drop that weapon so that everyone has the utility and equipment they need to do well in this round. Alright, that's enough of that mumbo jumbo. We're going in back into the big tips. Tip number 17, if someone says to pre-fire the enemy, this is when you decide that you know the enemy is over here at this corner, maybe at A long, and what you want to do is you want to push your crosshair right where you think they're going to be, and then before you even see the enemy, you want to shoot. So let's say I know someone's maybe in this corner here. I'm going to have my crosshair set up so when I move over, it'll be there, and before I even question if the enemy is even there, I'm just going to shoot, and I'm just going to shoot right there because I know the enemy is probably over there. I just want to shoot there just in case, and that gives you that faster reaction speed versus if you wait, try to process the enemy there and then shoot. That's a couple extra milliseconds that the enemy could fire back at you and get the kill. So if you feel certain that you see an enemy or you heard them, go ahead and get this pre-fire going, and that's going to help you get the kill faster and react faster than the enemy. Alright, tip number 19, and this is another big one, and it's a very common call out that you'll see in multiple maps, and that is heaven or under heaven. You'll see areas like this, such as this window here, and this is called heaven. It's any area that is elevated compared to the rest of the map. So you can see all this area down here on the site, and then there's this big window on top. This is called heaven. If someone calls under heaven, that means they're under this window and they're down here. So this is more applicable, especially if you are on the attacker side, or sorry, the defender side. You're trying to come back over here and someone calls under heaven. That's a good idea for you to pre-aim yourself, drop down, and then go for the kill like that. I know that that's a lot of process, but we're just getting into the juicy stuff now, and this is the biggest tip that I would say in this video, and that is the communication call, play for picks, or let's play default. This is a common strategy on the attacker side where the players will spread out to watch for aggressive defenders, hold map control, and bait out the enemy utility, and potentially get an opening kill before grouping back up and deciding where to go. A lot of teams, especially the pros, will have their own default rounds, but in general it means you want to spread out between the different sites, find some picks, see if anyone goes aggressive from the defender side, and then from there working back and grouping up. Tip number 21, tapping the bomb or faking the defuse. What does this mean? You'll hear it very commonly, and you're on the defender side and the enemy has the spike planted. What you can do is you want to make sure that you're quiet, not making any footsteps, and then you want to tap the spike and continue being silent, and then this makes the enemy question if you're actually sticking to the fuse or not, and then they could be tempted to peek, and then that gives you their location, and then you can challenge them and then go back to the defuse. If you decide to just stick it, a lot of times the enemy will do this peek still, and then you're stuck in that sticking animation and you can't eliminate him. So if someone says to fake the defuse, that means they want you to tap it, make that noise to bait the enemy out. On the opposite side, we have sticking the defuse or sticking the spike. This means that you want to defuse the bomb and actually hold it and defuse it. A common thing that people will do is if they're in a 1v1, maybe the enemy thinks that you're actually faking the defuse, and as a result they don't peek out and you don't get that information on them. But that is a risk in itself, where if you do decide to stick the bomb, you hold it and then you get the defuse if they don't peek out. Sometimes you wouldn't want to do this, as some players will suspect that maybe you aren't going to stick it the first time, and then if they make this mistake, you'll be able to just straight up hold it, defuse it, and make the enemy look like fools. Tip number 23, this is a huge one again. If someone says to plant for a certain position, let's say in this example someone says to plant for C long, that means your teammate is going to play C long back here, and you want to plant in a position that if they peek, they can see if the enemy is defusing. So anywhere around this general area will allow the C long player to kill an enemy that is trying to defuse, versus if someone was going to plant over here, the C long player cannot see this. So if someone says to plant for a certain position, there's lots of options. It's plant for C long, plant for garage here, or plant for spawn. You want to plant in a position where your teammate's going to be in that position that they called for, and can just swing out and get an easy kill if they were to actually hold the defuse. More spike tips coming up for you guys. Next up is what is a safe plant. Tip number 24. So a safe plant is, let's say you're going into the C bomb site and you don't have a lot of control. There's all different angles that are available. Maybe people are in garage, maybe people are in spawn and they're slowly creeping up over at you. You have not a lot of time to do anything. If you plan out in the open, the garage guy is going to shoot you, maybe push out. If you plan out somewhere that's good for another position, you can get exposed to spawn. So you want to do a safe plant, which is essentially over here on C site, where you can plant the bomb as safely as possible. No one can see you. No one can see you from C long. No one can see you from garage, and no one can see you if they push on C spawn. So this is an example of playing safe, which is a position where you're safest to get the spike down. It's not optimal though, because again, it's not planted for anything, but you can get some good information off it and you can get the spike down in a tight situation. Tip number 24 is also about spike tips, and it is what a default plant is. So in certain different parts of the map, it'll take experience to get this down. There are certain areas where it's most common for you to plant the spike. So I've just painted a couple of those spots, and then we're going to go over to the A site. So this is the most common spot. If someone says plant default, that means they want you to plant in the most obvious and common spot that people may plant in, which is over here on the A bomb site. And then if we go into the B site on Haven, the most common areas are right here in this corner, or right here in this corner. So these are the common areas, and that'll let the enemies, or sorry, your teammates know earlier exactly where you plan to plant. And these are the default positions, again, the most common areas that people will plant the spike. Tip number 26, when someone says to play for the bomb. So let's say you have the spike planted down over at C, right, the default position we just talked about, and now there's people coming in for the retake and you're hiding over at C cubby. So if someone says to play the bomb, this means they don't want you to go for any aggressive plays. So if you're already here, you don't want to go swinging wide and looking for kills and trying to get kills when the spike is going off, as you can potentially get yourself killed, and then that's one less player that they have to worry about and gives them an increased chance to defuse the spike. So if the spike's going down, you really want to play the timer, which is what playing the bomb is. So if you want to play the bomb correctly, and you want to wait for players to come to you rather than them pushing, and then you could potentially get yourself killed. So you can stay here in your position, wait for them to come to you, and only push if you absolutely have to when someone says to play the spike, so you can let the spike tick as long as possible. Tip number 27, and that is playing the time. So let's say the enemy has about 18 seconds like here, and you want to wait for the time to run out. So if they don't have the spike and it's just laying here, you can just sit back and wait for the clock to go down, and if you do so, you don't have to eliminate the enemies, and you'll just automatically win if the timer runs out. So when the time is low, you want to actually do this so you can get a nice and easy win, rather than letting the enemies push you and then you getting killed and then potentially losing a round when the time was running out. Alright, tip number 28, really important one, and it's called Retaking Together. If someone calls this out, you want to come into a bomb site that's been planted and go in as a team. What this means is if someone's at A link and maybe someone's at outside of garage, you guys want to push in together onto the B site if you know someone is over maybe at the little cubby outside B. So you guys want to come in together, you want to clear all these angles out onto the site, and then from there, if you know someone's probably going to be in that cubby area, you guys want to come in together and play together. Again, kind of like that double peek that we talked about earlier, making sure that both you and your teammate are coming in on this guy and getting the elimination on him. So you want to retake together, which means coming in as a team, so you guys don't just go in one by one and get yourself eliminated. Especially if there's multiple players on the other side, there's multiple angles to check for, multiple places to be, and you can't check them all by yourself. You need one player to check one and trust that your teammates will check the other angles while you check one angle, and then clear them all together as a team. Versus if you come in one by a time, you expose yourself to getting crossfired, or you expose your teammates to getting crossfired. Alright, we're just about there, guys. We're going to push it to tip number 29, which is the number advantage. When someone calls this out, this means your team has more players alive than the enemy team. While you're in that advantage, you should probably play more safely and be grouped up so that you don't have any 1v1 fights and risk losing that man advantage. If the enemy team has the number advantage, you should be looking for ways to equalize it and force enemies out into a 1 vs 1 situation to again get that kill and even the odds. Alright, you made it to number 30 of the tips today, and that is the glass canyon. This is a huge term that Counter-Strike players use, and essentially all it means is that you're going to buy an operator without any armor. This is especially used if you're in that 12-12 game and you're in the final round. You can't afford armor, but you want an operator. You want to sometimes go this glass canyon where you only have the operator, but you don't have any armor because you can't afford it. And this is really good sometimes if you're in a sticky situation, you want to get that early pick, then you want to get this operator and play the round without armor and risk it for the biscuit. That's all I have for this video. If it helped you out, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and let me know in the comments down below what you'd like to see from me next. I know a lot of you guys are new players, so I want to get you guys prepared for what Valorant brings to the table. So let me know what's up. Do you need help with agents? Do you need tips on your aim? Leave them all in the comments down below. I'm Dr. Zora, helping cure you from being a noob, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.